The story kicks off in Li Tang's home. Tang, just a regular college student discharged from the military 6 months ago, finds himself amidst the hustle and bustle of his sister Yang's upcoming wedding. Family members express their worries about Tang's seemingly uneventful post-military life. However, he shares his plan to embark on a working holiday in Canada, injecting a hint of excitement into his future endeavors. Back in college, Tang chats with his buddies Jiang Huan and Miyang. He spills the beans about how life has been a bit dull since high school, craving some excitement. At home, Tang dives into videos showcasing the beauty of Canada. His apartment, though, is a bit of a mess. Then he unwraps a surprise package, a framed picture of the stunning Rocky Mountains. Excited to hang it on his wall, he faces a small hiccup. He can't seem to drive a nail into the wall. Later, Tang shows up at a convenience store for his part-time shift. As the clock ticks, a somewhat inebriated customer stumbles in requesting cigarettes. This individual attempts to place a food order as if the store were a restaurant, but his companion takes a more amiable approach towards Tang. The companion ends up buying the food, and the duo enjoys their meal before making their exit. As closing time approaches, Tang's boss arrives and instructs him to call it a day. Seizing the opportunity, Tang tries to ask if he can borrow a hammer to hang up the photograph, but his words go unheard by the boss. Undeterred, Tang decides to take the hammer with him anyway. Heading home, Tang stumbles upon the same intoxicated man from earlier, now unconscious on the street. Spotting the companion nearby, he attempts to inform him about his inebriated friend. However, the companion dismisses it, assuring Tang that everything is fine. Despite this, Tang persists, and the situation takes a turn for the worse as the companion starts physically assaulting him. In a sudden flashback, glimpses of Tang and Jiang Huang being bullied by fellow students during their high school days resurface, shedding light on the roots of Tang's resilience in the face of adversity. In a reflective narration, Tang confesses that he has never retaliated physically before. The unfolding scene reveals Tang retrieving the hammer from his bag and striking the aggressive man, who crumples to the ground and tragically succumbs to his injuries. Concern etches across Tang's face, prompting him to conceal himself as other passers-by stroll along the street. Among them is a blind woman accompanied by her guide dog named Rex. Oblivious to Tang's presence, she continues on her way, unintentionally bypassing the unfolding aftermath. Back at home, Tang hastily cleans the blood from his body in the shower, the weight of recent events pressing heavily on him. As the water rushes over him, he begins to hallucinate, envisioning the deceased man lamenting the impact of his demise on his family. Later that night, Jiang Huan visits Tang's house in an inebriated state, having indulged in a night out. Tang, grappling with his thoughts, raises the topic of their high school tormentors. To his surprise, Jiang Huan reveals that the bullies from their past are, in fact, flourishing in their respective lives. The revelation leaves Tang pondering the complex twists life takes. Tang shares a story from his past when he cheated on his girlfriend. He thought he would get caught, but he never did. This wasn't the only time he escaped consequences. He also managed to steal Jiang Huan's tablet in high school without getting caught. It seems like Tang has a talent for getting away with things, whether by luck or some mysterious ability. Right now, Tang realizes he dropped the hammer on the street, the only thing connecting him to the incident. The next morning, Detective Jan Nangam and his colleague Yong Jae examine the bodies of the drunk man and Tang's friend, Kim Myong-jin. Meanwhile, Jiang Huan leaves Tang's house in a hurry. Tang, on the other hand, gets called in to work at the store because a coworker called in sick for her shift. The unfolding events continue to add a layer of mystery to Tang's life. Nangam steps into the convenience store and inquires about its security cameras from the owner. Later, two young boys find themselves in a bind with Nangam, leading to their transportation to the police station. At the station, the boys receive a warning. As the detectives review the security footage, a perplexing question arises: how did the bodies end up in separate locations? The mystery deepens as the investigation unfolds. Reviewing the security footage, Nangam identifies the drunk man purchasing items from Tang. Consequently, when Tang arrives at the shop, Nangam is ready to question him. Nangam queries if Tang remembers the two men. Just as Tang is on the verge of responding, Yongjae interjects, stating that a witness observed the men engaged in a physical altercation. The plot thickens as the interrogation takes an unexpected turn. With more test results, the detectives come to a surprising conclusion: the two men might have killed each other. In a twist, it's revealed that when Nangam watched the security footage, a fly conveniently blocked the camera exactly when Tang picked up the hammer. This unexpected detail adds more mystery to the situation. The intoxicated man's wife provides her account to the police. According to her testimony, her husband frequently brought Myong-jin, a colleague, to their home. She describes Myong-jin as friendly and thoughtful, and their relationship evolved into an affair, with plans for marriage in the works. However, Nangam remains skeptical about Myongjin's existence as he fails to uncover any records on him. Moreover, Nangam is convinced that he has encountered this mysterious man before, deepening the intrigue surrounding the unfolding events. Nangam comes back to the store to buy chewing gum. While there, he advises Tang about the possible effects of trauma. He also shares his sympathy, mentioning that he went through similar mistreatment due to having an uncommon name, just like Tang. This shared experience creates a connection between them, highlighting the challenges they've both faced. Later, Jianghwan shows up, mentioning he's been trying to call Tang. He reveals they were both questioned by a detective about Tang. The two friends decide to go out for a drink. The next day brings a surprising revelation: Kim Myongjin's identity is fake. His real name was Yeo Buael, a suspect in a 2009 serial murder case uncovered through DNA analysis. Tang, upon learning this, appears relieved. During an intimate moment with a woman, he hallucinates Buael again. This time, he boldly confronts the man about his crimes, believing he played a role in putting an end to Buael's malevolent deeds. The story then shifts to a blind woman playing with her dog. Inside her house, the hammer Tang used sits on a table, adding another layer to the unfolding events. Tang is being pursued by a dog while carrying the hammer in his bag. He awakens, questioning if it was just a dream. Tang then heads to his parents' house, where his mother urges him to join her at church. As he disposes of some trash, an alarming sight awaits him: the severed head of the deceased man lying in the bin. Nangam visits a flower shop, but the shopkeeper appears more engrossed in a phone call than assisting him. Undeterred, he goes to another store, seeking a juice gift box. However, upon discovering it's missing 2 bottles, he discards it. These errands seem to be intended for his father, a former police officer now unconscious in bed. Upon returning home, Nangam faces criticism from his mother for not bringing flowers. Tang's mother notices his weight loss and expresses concern about him missing classes. Before she can elaborate, one of her friends interrupts. They all proceed to the church, where Tang's mother shares a heartfelt sentiment. She encourages him to go abroad if he wishes, assuring him that neither she nor his father would be a burden. As a symbolic gesture, she hands him a lottery ticket, perhaps holding hopes for a brighter future for her son. At the police station, there's growing pressure on the cops for not apprehending Buael before his demise. The captain intervenes, taking Nangam aside and instructing him to cease fixating on that guy. It becomes evident that Nangam has been pursuing a suspect with a background as a former police officer. Tang acquires a new phone before heading to the store for his shift. The woman part-time expresses dissatisfaction with the welcome message on the main door. Amidst his duties, the blind woman from earlier appears, making an unexpected demand for 2 million won. It's revealed that she isn't completely blind and is aware that Tang was involved in a person's death. She hints at possessing the hammer, introducing a new layer of suspense. At the university, Jianghwan and Mi Young converse about Tang seeking financial assistance from both of them. Tang goes to the extent of attempting to sell his new phone, but the endeavor proves unsuccessful. Desperate, he asks the store's owner for an advance on his salary, but due to a previous bad experience, the owner declines. However, later, Tang receives a surprising text from his boss, indicating that he has been paid after all. Despite this, the funds are still insufficient. In a drastic move, Tang resorts to taking his house savings account details from his parents and liquidating the entire account. The financial struggle intensifies for Tang. Jianghwan and Mi Young keep calling Tang, but he doesn't answer. Tang is at the store, carrying a bag with all the cash. The owner mentions seeing the blind woman, prompting Tang to rush out and find a cigarette box she bought, showing a time and address. At the police station, the captain scolds Nangam, saying he's chasing the man for personal reasons related to his father. Nangam defends himself, saying he's just doing his job. The following day at noon, Tang heads to the woman's house. She casually prepares coffee and engages in conversation with Tang, who remains silent. As Tang takes out the cash, he is taken aback when she clarifies that she means 2 million won per month. To his surprise, she unveils the hammer, stating that she wouldn't jeopardize becoming an accomplice for such a small amount. Feeling compelled, Tang leaves the money, takes the hammer, and exits. However, the woman drops a comment suggesting she knows extensive details about Tang's family, prompting him to return. She asserts that even without the hammer, the police can easily apprehend him, injecting a sense of vulnerability and raising the stakes for Tang. In a disturbing moment, Tang imagines himself charging at the woman like a dog wearing a leash. In reality, he attacks her with a hammer, causing her death. Tang quickly grabs his things and runs out, leaving a bloody mark on her front door. Later on, as milk packages pile up at the woman's door, a delivery man checks on her. Soon, police tape surrounds the area and Nangam and Yongjae investigate. Unfortunately, the woman's body is severely damaged, likely due to her dog Rex. The commotion caused by Rex in the garden reveals a startling discovery: a skull buried in the soil. In the police meeting, they discover two skeletons in the woman's garden. Back at home, Tang senses Yeo-ok's presence and reflects on how he killed someone quite easily. Oddly, he realizes he's been indoors for 4 days without much food and wonders why the police haven't come for him despite numerous missed calls on his phone. Surprisingly, the police find out the dog licked everything Tang touched in the house, removing any fingerprints or DNA. This leads to a discussion about the dog's fate, debating whether he should be put down. The unexpected twist complicates Tang's situation even more. During this time, a deeply troubled Tang attempts to take his own life but is unsuccessful. Jiang Huan, concerned about his friend, visits and deceives Tang into opening the door. A heated argument ensues, with Tang revealing that he was the one who stole Jiang Huan's tablet. Jiang Huan, surprising Tang, admits that he had always known about it. Following that incident, Tang's behavior takes a positive turn, leaving Jiang Huan perplexed about whether Tang is inherently good or bad. At the police station, one of Nangam's colleagues is convinced that someone else was at Yeo-ok's house on that day, but there is no concrete evidence to support this suspicion. Later, the decision is made for the dog to be euthanized and the colleague is tasked with taking him to the pound. On the way, the dog shows a strong desire to enter a karaoke establishment where Tang is currently brooding in one of the rooms. Tang, still avoiding work, finds out that his boss has filed a police complaint against him. The two young boys from the first episode reappear. Spotting the policeman walking with the dog, they decide to play a prank on him. Running up to him, one of the boys stabs him with a broken bottle. Meanwhile, Tang emerges from the karaoke joint and learns shocking news about Yeo-ok. She murdered her parents. The two boys, still wandering the streets, realize they've lost their wallets. Spotting Tang walking, they decide to mess with him this time. As they approach, Tang experiences goosebumps on the back of his neck, a sensation that occurred the last 2 times he was involved in a murder. The following scene reveals 2 lifeless bodies lying in a dump. The detective arrives at the scene in the morning. Meanwhile, Tang awakens at home and is horrified to discover he's covered in blood. Alongside his hammer, there's now a bloody brick accompanied by a small note. Tang recollects that someone brought him home, but he is unsure of his identity. The note encourages Tang to seek assistance if needed, providing a link to a Telegram group named Only for Heroes. The mysterious note adds a layer of intrigue and raises questions about Tang's involvement in the recent events. A flashback shows a younger Yeo-ok hanging out with her friends when she lights a cigarette. But there's a gas leak and the place explodes, leading to her losing an eye and getting burnt marks. We then see an adult Yeo-ok using a pipe to send gas into her parents' room. Her mother wakes up, ruining her plans, and Yeo-ok grabs a knife. She had signed her parents up for 8 life insurance policies. Somebody narrates a story about Yeo-ok, claiming that her death can't erase her crimes. Nangam reads the whole thing on a social media post. He and Youngjae meet the woman who wrote it, a cousin of Yeo-ok. The cousin claims that Yeo-ok poured boiling water on her face in school and she had no reason to do so, she just enjoyed it. At the police station, Chung-jin is being congratulated for coming back to work. He describes the stabbing and then asks about the 2 boys who were killed. Chung-jin speaks to the captain and tells him he wants to quit his job and make sashimi instead. Nangam and Youngjae go to one of the high school boys' funerals. Nangam asks the mother about his attacks on Chung-jin, but she slaps Nangam. Youngjae wonders if he was too harsh. On their way back, Nangam tells Youngjae a story about a case he had worked on. A girl named Kang Yeon-seo committed suicide after she was raped by 2 boys. At her funeral, the boy's mother strode in and made a scene, claiming it was all consensual. Nangam reveals that the woman is the boy's mother they just met. Her son was the rapist. He says people aren't just assailants or victims, they can be both. The boy then went on to commit more assaults and thefts, which is exactly why Nangam targeted him and his friend in previous incident. Nangam speaks to the convenience store owner and learns that Yeo-ok had been standing on the street nearby around 10 o'clock. The detective asks about Lee Tang and the owner gets angry because he took his money. He then mentions that Tang saw the woman as well. At home, Tang connects with the Only for Heroes Telegram user. When the latter reveals he knows Tang's name, Tang gets scared and blocks him. A postman then comes to his door, giving him an attendance notice for his court case about his stealing money from his boss. Nangam speaks to Chung-jin and tries to convince him not to quit. He refuses and goes home, where his wife tells him Nangam gifted their son a bike. Nangam then meets the detective in charge of Tang's financial fraud case. Youngjae visits the house of the girl from Nangam's story. Yeon-seo's father, Sang-mook, suddenly confesses to killing the boys that raped her. Meanwhile, Tang has now decided to turn himself in. He calls the detective in charge of the financial fraud case and tells him so. The other, misunderstanding Tang's purpose, tells him to come by 9 p.m. Tang keeps some money aside for his mother and for the convenience store, packs all the evidence of his murders into a bag, and leaves the house. Sangmook gives his statement saying he killed the boys with a brick but doesn't remember what he did with it afterward. Naturally, Nangam isn't convinced. He enters the interrogation room and exposes the man for his lies. He doesn't smoke, but the victims had cigarette burns. Also, he's left-handed while the killer used his right. Nangam's supervisor is annoyed about the turn of events, but Nangam convinces him. He then gets a message from the other detective who informs him about Li Tang. Yongjae apologizes for being rash. He then says he informed the high school boy's mother that they had a suspect. He asks if that could be a problem. A flashback shows Sangmook received a knife in a package at his house. He then very much did leave, intending to kill the boys. He was messaging with the same person who contacted Tang, only for heroes. The person tells him to do what they practiced. At present, the man gets hit by a car right outside the police station. It's the high schooler's mother driving it. Meanwhile, Tang deposits his cash into an ATM. Two men on a bike steal his bag and race away. When they don't find much cash inside, they throw it away along with all the evidence of Tang's murders. Tang himself is in an ambulance and is taken to a hospital since he hurt his arm when he fell over. Sangmook is in a hospital bed himself. Nangam questions him, asking why he's trying to frame himself and protect the real killer. After he leaves, Sangmook gets another text from Only for Heroes. He sees Tang walking out with a bandaged arm and follows, but his wheelchair falls over. Tang hears the noise and comes back. Sangmook tells him to go away since the police are in the building. Tang realizes that the man knows who he is and tries to find out more, but Sangmook tells him they'll connect on Telegram. Tang rushes away, but unfortunately Nangam sees him and follows. Sangmook watches videos of his daughter and thinks about his memories with her. He then takes a handful of his sleeping pills together. A flashback shows Sangmook watching Tang fight the two boys and smash their heads with a brick, but he seemingly passes out after doing so. Just as Nangam is following Tang, he's called back to the hospital because of Sangmook. Tang opens his telegram to see that the account has been deleted. He then recalls that two people carried him home, not just one. Later, Tang's sister and mother inevitably come looking for him at his apartment. But the place seems to be cleared out. A flashback shows Sangmook drinking with someone, talking about how Yun Seo didn't die immediately. She suffered in the hospital for hours before she did. Sangmook admits he wants to kill the men who did this to her. The person sitting across from him, a younger man, tells him that he can do something about it. He's wearing a Batman hoodie. A group of colleagues are out for a team dinner. The boss, Prosecutor G, gives the others his card and heads home. He's called for a driver and assumes it is the man who is waiting by his car. The man is wearing a hoodie that says Only for Heroes. Halfway through, the man wakes up with a call from the real driver. He realizes he's going the wrong way. Lights flash inside the car and we then see a body floating down a river. Meanwhile, Yang comes over to see the convenience store owner. The owner withdraws his complaint against Tang and we learn that Tang's family paid him the money he was owed. Chung Jin officially retires from the police station. A special investigations unit has been created for the murders. 4 months later, they have nothing. Nangam claims it was all for show. The unit leader, a woman, overhears him and they argue. Nangam believes all the murders were the work of one person while the woman says they're not. Elsewhere, in a room filled with superhero merchandise, a young man discusses a murder case online. His name is Robin and he seems to be a profiler. Nangam visits him and shows him the details of several murder cases, then surmises that there is a possibility it's a serial killer. Nangam has his colleague listening in on their whole conversation. When Bin accidentally reveals he hacked into the prosecutor's network, Nangam tells his colleague to get Bin to the station. At the station, Nangam convinces his captain to let him deal with Bin since he would definitely know something. Ultimately, with no evidence, they let Robin go, but it seems to be a part of Nangam's plan. While driving Bin home, Nangam talks about how they don't have any leads and tells the latter to share what he finds.